Alrighty, well, we'll get started. So today we're going to be speaking about food premises fit outs and all the things that we think at council that you would benefit from knowing. Yeah, feel free to interrupt and ask questions and things like that. But yeah, we'll get started and go from there. First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge that Tweed Shire Council wishes to acknowledge the Ngungal people and Minjungbal speaking people of the Bundjalung country, in particular the Gunjambura and Tolgaigan and Marung Mubar clans, as being the traditional owners and custodians of the land and waters within the Tweed Shire boundaries. Council also acknowledges and respects the Tweed Aboriginal community's right to speak for its country and to care for its traditional country in accordance with its laws, customs and traditions. So a bit about today, we'll be talking about an introduction to the food fit out standards. We'll be talking more about the standards and guides, and in particular, from my experience, what you need to know as a food business or someone that might be fitting out a food business or helping with that. And council's role and the New South Wales requirements and other services that council offers throughout that as well. So a little bit about me. I'm an environmental health officer at council. We have a team of about, I'd probably say about 15 officers at the moment, and we look after a range of issues, including public health and environmental health, one of them being the food regulation program. And what we do is that we, in the food regulation program, is that we look after our food premises, in terms of their inspections and things like that, but we also look after the food premises fit outs and the way that they're put up as well. So you might see that through a DA, or you might see that through just the food business fitting out on its own. But yeah, we'll talk about that more today. Okay, so introduction to the food fit out standards. What are they? If you haven't seen the food fit out standards or you're not across them, we have two documents that we really use, and these are nationwide throughout Australia and New Zealand. One is Australian Standard 4674-2004, the Design, Construction and Fit Out Standard for Food Premises. This one's the one on the left here. You can get that one from SIA Global, which I've put the link down the bottom here. It sets out practical and outcomes-based options for the setup of a food business. So I guess what it offers differently to the standard, which is next to it, is that it offers, suitable materials and suitable finishes, as well as workflows such as clean and dirty zones and things like that. So it's really your guide on how to and what would be acceptable. But when we look at standard 3.2.3, this is actually what I guess is the regulation and what people, will be aiming to comply with when they are in their food premises as well. So yeah, the Food Standards Code 3.2.3 is the enforceable document. So what you're really aiming to do is to use both of these documents to create a food premises that's going to be suitable for your for the business that you're going to operate, and that also it will be in accordance with our standards. And I've got a picture of Swiss cheese here, and it's not because we're going to be talking about Swiss cheese today, but it's a visual explanation of why we use these documents and why it's so important in our food businesses in preventing foodborne illness and creating food safety outcomes. So the Swiss cheese model, I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but basically what it does is it considers all the defences and holes, as you can see, as hazards, and looks at the potential risks that might happen in these areas. Just admit these other people through here. So when we're looking at food safety management, we look at 7 defences, or cheese slices in this instance, and these are the adequate facilities, training and education, safe ingredients and water, environmental hygiene, personal hygiene, safe food temperatures and safe systems. So When we look at an adequate facility or a food fit out, the first line of defence, as you can see here, and as an example, say if we have a deli food business that's handling raw meat, you can see these lines going through here. So the business may have adequate fit out, and that might mean that they might have adequate hand washing facilities. Okay, that's one line of defence, but potentially the person might not wash their hands correctly. And then you've got training and education where that will, combat that risk and that problem there. So the importance of food fit out is that you're setting up your business, to have multiple defences against foodborne illness. And then, all your training and all your practices once you're in the food business will, supplement that as well. Okay, so what are the minimum requirements? So in a moment, we'll take a look at Australian 4674 and see how they both aim to achieve the same result. But these two documents, as we spoke about, are all about outcomes-based, and you'll see this in the next few slides. When we consider the aims of the documents and the fit-out, we really should have sufficient space, suitable fixtures and facilities, and suitable equipment for the activities that you're going to be doing in your business. It should be easy and clean to should be easy to clean and maintain. It should have suitable sanitizing and cleaning equipment, and it should prevent pests from entry, and fumes and smoke, should be considered as part of ventilation. And we should also obviously all have potable water. I won't speak too much about the potable water situation. Most businesses here in the Tweed are connected to council supply, which is a no-brainer, and we don't have to worry about water safety in that instance. However, there are some businesses that are connected by their own private water supply, and there's a little bit more that these businesses need to do, which is its own subject in itself. So what I'll do is I'll leave information at the end of this presentation, and as I said, it will be recorded and put onto our website. But yeah, anyone that wants to speak about private water supply, maybe just jot down a few questions that you have at the end, and we can talk about that, or you can just contact council directly, and we can take you through all that as well. So we're going to break down these minimum requirements one by one. And yeah, if you have any questions, just please let me know. Or otherwise you can log them into the chat box and I'll have a look at them through the end of the presentation. So good workflow. When you are designing a kitchen, you should really be mapping out the areas of the premises, and it's a really great place to start. And there's heaps of different ways that you can do this, but I've just taken these two examples to show you that you don't have to be an artist or an architect to have a look at how you're going to use the space. You can use these flow maps, or you can just draw it out yourself. It doesn't have to be highly complicated. It's just about getting that original concept on the map and trying to figure out how you're going to use the areas. So on the left here, we can see the workflow being mapped out as an image, and they've broken up each activity into levels, and then shown where they're going to use those activities and where they'll impact on each other. And then on the left here, hope that's your left, we can see the map here that they've actually done a visual picture. And they both tell exactly the same story. So the top tier of activities all show the entry and exit points. This is shown here on the left. And then we show the hazards to these kind of areas. So this could be staff coming in that are external people, like waste services, delivery services, and collection. And then we show them that they're only getting into those first initial kind of areas here that won't pose a risk to our food handling points. So you might have a delivery man that's come through, or a delivery woman that's come through. You don't know if they've washed their hands. You don't know if they've, got visible debris on their shoes or on their trolleys or things like that. They've only got access to these first initial areas here, and they don't have access to the food preparation area here. So it's just about considering those risks and those elements and then breaking them down one by one and then figuring out how you're going to go about it there. So the same thing we can see on this picture here. So, the delivery person will come through the back here, and they've only got access to this dirty zone, really. So they don't have access to the kitchen. They're not coming through the kitchen area. You might see that in other businesses, and the hazards just there are, basically contamination and poor hygiene practices that can contaminate the food that's being prepared in the kitchen area. So you can kind of do this with all the aspects of the food business, and then you can kind of do a step-by-step and start to map out, from a starting point, how the business will operate and how, you can start to combat those hazards. So one thing I haven't put in this image here and that we haven't discussed here, I wonder if anyone can see or suggest that as something that might be a really good point to put in, maybe this entry point. No one? We'd probably want to see a hand wash basin here. So we haven't put any fixtures and fittings and things like that. But, as many hand wash basins that we can get in this kind of areas is a great idea. Okay, so we've considered workflow and we're beginning to map out what we need in terms of our work areas and the flow of the business. Now we start to consider how the space will be used to its best potential, and we start to look at, what are the minimum requirements for the business, what activities we'll be doing, what type of, things do we want to prioritize in this business. So if you're kind of considering what is important, you should start making a list of the equipment that you might need or be using. I would prioritize, as I said, the hand wash basins and think about, where they might be visible from all areas of the preparation for the food areas and, in those back areas as well, if you can have more than one. Consider, do you need more than one? In most businesses, we would say, yes, you do. But it's just, up to you how you want to, make sure that people are going to be washing their hands. You should start thinking about what existing connections you have. For example, if you've got existing plumbing connections and you're not looking to have, more applications for your sewer and drainage, you might want to start mapping your kitchen so that that existing connections are close by to all your food activities. The same things with floor waste. These are some things that you can't change usually. So if you're coming into a premises that's, a shell sort of thing that's already got those connections, start to prioritize them and start to work out how you're going to work around them or how they're going to use them to benefit your kitchen. Obviously, you should start to think about how many staff you'll have in the area. And I guess, considering how your business will grow, quite often we see businesses and they think about the there and then now, and they don't think about how their business will grow, and they just grow out of their space really quickly. And you've got, areas where you've just got dead zones and things like that that just haven't been thought through properly. Okay, so the biggest one that we see in terms of a compliance issue in our food businesses is about cleaning and maintenance, and they can be a really easy thing to address if you have a bit of pre-thought, and they're quite often something that if you do it right from that very fit out beginning, you don't have to think about it later on the track. So when we talk about easy to clean and maintain, we talk about materials that are durable and that they're suitable for the activity that you're doing in that area. So AS 4674 provides examples of suitable materials. It doesn't provide an end-all, and this document, as it suggests, is written quite a long time ago. So there are other finishes that are suited for these areas and that are suitable for food businesses, but you just need to consider those aspects. Are they going to be durable? Are they going to be resistant to scratches or chips? Are they going to need maintenance in terms of resealing and things like that? So stainless steel, for instance, is always going to be more beneficial to a business than timber because it just doesn't need the same maintenance that timber does. So smooth materials is something that we often, find in businesses where the materials, let's say for tiles or splashbacks, they're not smooth and they've gone for that design look that is something that's going to be, you know, something that looks really nice, but it's not going to be easy to run a cloth along, and it's not going to be easy to get rid of food and things like that. So thinking about those materials and where they're going to be in that area. Making sure that there's no holes or cracks, you know, same thing, you know, splashbacks, floors, coving, all that kind of area, just making sure that you're kind of keeping it as smooth as possible. And then obviously making sure that it's all sealed and it's, you know, going to be able to be hit with some water, hit with some detergent, hit with some sanitizer. So this table here is just an example of what AS 4674 provides as you know, suitable finishes. As I said, it's not the end all. You'll see in the Food Standards Code, it just asks for things that are you know, going to be suitable for that area. So if you're looking for a particular material and you're wondering, is this going to be suitable, you know, talk to the environmental health officer that's doing your assessment, and they will be able to give you some tips as well. So suitable cleaning and sanitizing methods. This is something that a lot of food businesses, if they haven't been in the industry, don't tend to consider. But the Food Standards Code requires businesses to not only clean food surfaces and food utensils, but also to sanitize them. So there's two ways that you can do this. One is through this method here. So you've got your two bowls. So you'll rinse and you'll wash with detergent. And then you've got your second bowl here that you'll fill with a chemical sanitizer, and you'll dip that utensil or that item through here and then into the air dryer. The other option is to have a single bowl sink and a dishwasher. The dishwasher must be a commercial dishwasher, and it must be capable of reaching high temperatures so that it can use those temperatures to kill any bacteria or foodborne you know, matter that might be on the product there, so that it can be used again. Dishwashers are I guess, you know, what businesses tend to use because they're quick and easy. But you've just got to remember that they have a little bit more maintenance in terms of, you know, having it serviced regularly and making sure that it's reaching those high temperatures. The biggest tip that we say for our food businesses is consider what your biggest you know, item will be that you'll need to sanitize, and make sure that either your dishwasher or your sinks will fit that item. There's no point having really tiny sinks if you're going to have really big, you know, bowls or mixing equipment or things like that. It's just not going to work. Now, pests and ventilation, we usually don't associate these two together, but when you look at the two hazards, they both require the same thing, and that's to keep it out of the business. So pests, you will need to consider all of openings as a rule of thumb. If it's going out to the open or has access to the outside, either screen it or keep it closed. We see businesses that, you know, tend to have those strut windows and things like that. Just keep in mind, you know, you're going to need to either have that, you know, being operated at the time and the food business handler watching that area, or you're going to need to screen it. Preventing entry is way better than treating pests. So you'll save money on pest inspections and treatment if you can prevent entry in the first place. So if you're considering your fit out, just, you know, start considering how you're going to prevent pests from coming in if you're going to screen it. In terms of mechanical ventilation, it is required for all deep frying under the building code, and a lot of businesses will tend to add in a you know, desktop fryer or something like that into the business. Under the code, we do it is required, and our food officers are aware of this, and they do request that mechanical ventilation be installed if deep frying is occurring. So just keep that in mind, and it might be something that you might want to prioritise in this fit out design stage. It's also required in kitchens where the equipment exceeds the total maximum output of 8 kilowatts. So adding all those equipment together and reaching that 8 kilowatts. You can see in the image on the left here, it just demonstrates how mechanical ventilation or hood needs to, I'll just let this person in. needs to be designed. So just making sure that that hood is actually all over the equipment that it is trying to extract. It's not, a tiny hood over a twice as long piece of equipment or multiple equipment. We just see this working better, and it helps and aids in the cleaning around those areas, especially on the roof and things like that. Okay, so council's role and the New South Wales requirements. Council's role is to, I'll just put that one back there. Council's role is in relation to food premises regulation. So we do review and assess all fit out applications. And as I said, they may come through a development approval, so a DA, or a compliant development consent, so CDC, or it might just be an application that a person is making through exempt requirements. So just chat to our environmental health staff about this if you're a little bit unsure whether or not you need a fit out application, or if you some advice. In terms of the council's role, when we conduct the fit out inspections, we'll ask you then to register your food business, and your food business will be part of our food regulation program. And then that's where you'll begin your use activities and things like that. So having that fit out at the start just puts you on the best foot forward, and you've got a premises that's going to be compliant and it's going to be useful, and you're not going to need to worry about that during your food food inspections. So I just thought I would put in this slide just council's other services. So as I said, we do regulate all retail food businesses in the Tweed. We share that role with New South Wales Food Authority. They regulate the manufacturers and wholesalers, and we regulate the retail businesses. So you may see a health officer from council, or you may see a health officer from New South Wales Food Authority, depending on your activities. But we also offer health searches for existing businesses. So these can be done prior to sale, either by the applicant, so the person that might be purchasing, or by the person that's trying to sell the business. So it can be used as a selling point if you're interested in that. There's two options available. One is a pre-purchase, which is only a record search, and it's based on the last inspection. So usually within the last 12 months, the inspection report, and then the other one is carried out with an inspection. So you'll get information on that premises, its compliance with the food standards and the Australian standards at that time. We also look at footpath dining applications, and can help you with your trade waste and connections through to our trade waste services. Put that back. Yeah, so footpath dining applications are usually, tie and tie with food businesses. They last for 5 years. So if you have any questions about that, we can talk about that more at the end of the slide, or you can contact us directly. Okay, and yeah, so that is our food premises fit outs forum, and I've left a fair bit of time, I hope, at the end here for questions. And I'm happy to go back through, because I can hear that from the chat and from you all that there was some disturbances in terms of connection. Is there anyone that has any questions on our presentation here today, or burning questions about food premises fit out?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for home-based businesses, the Food Safety Standard 3.2.3 states that exemptions can apply subject to council
approval.
How the local council administers them. Obviously, those exemptions could be, depending on the council, could vary significantly. Do you, the Tweed Council, have a document which details what the exemptions which apply are?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it leads on to our next slide, which is really good, Peter. So I'll just put this one up here, and as I said, this will be available to you. But council has a fit-out document that they released, a fair while ago, so it is an older document. But it talks about, I'll just bring this one up here. It talks about different food businesses and different premises, and one of them being the home-based occupation. So we have a separate application process for that. And as you said, we can approve, many different exemptions for home-based businesses, and we regularly do. Say, for instance, the double bowl sinks and things like that. We might approve that you have a single bowl in your kitchen, and that you've got your dishwasher, and that you use your hand basin from your bathroom as your hand basin for the kitchen, just because of the distances and the types of food that's being produced there. It's a lower risk. So there are all of those exemptions there for our home-based businesses. And yeah, it's written into that guide, as I said, which has got the link here on the slide. But yeah, if you've got any specific exemption, council are very happy to talk with you about, what might work for your home-based business and what might work, for the activities that you're conducting there.
Okay, so the way to find out whether an exemption will apply is to, obviously.
Yeah, just to ask the question, I guess, because there's lots of exemptions. So yeah.
If they're not detailed and documented, you don't know where to start, and then you're running around either doing things which you didn't have to do, spending money you don't have to do, developing plans which are maybe you understand it to mean one thing and not, unless the exemptions are detailed.
Yeah, well, actually, our form is quite. Have you had a look online, Peter, about our form? I'll bring it up on the screen here.
Okay.
Because it's quite detailed in terms of what we would expect to see from a home-based business. Because again, like I said, the risk is much more, much less for a home-based business than it would be for a commercial activity. So if we're looking at our home-based fit out or home occupation assessment, it speaks about the types of food that you'll be conducting at your business. It talks about the food safety supervisor requirements, which is fine. But then it also talks about what type of things that we'd like to see in the food business. So that's those minimum requirements that we spoke about for the commercial business. So it might be a separate hand wash basin that's easily accessible, a double bowl sink or a single bowl sink with a dishwasher, a food preparation area, cold storage, and floors and walls and ceilings. So all of these things as part of this application are sent in just as pictures for home-based businesses. And yeah, if they've got any specific example, or any issues that might be picked up in that application process, the officer would then contact the home business applicant. So I guess the level of application is quite different to the commercial one that we just spoke about.
All right.
Yeah, does that answer your question?
So as long as you got floors, walls, and a ceiling, you're fine in terms of your home-based kitchen?
A little bit more.
Yeah. You don't have to have the right type of flooring. You don't have to have the right type of splashbacks. You don't have to have any of those things. Is that what that's?
Yeah, so it is a lesser.
It doesn't actually tell you a lot.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it is a lesser I guess, standard of what's going on there. So any domestic kitchen would usually be suitable. So, your kitchens and things like that. If, for instance, if you had an outdoor kitchen or something like that, or your kitchen, in the images that you sent through, bare walls without a splashback or something like that, those are the types of things that we would pick up through the application process. But for the amount of food that a home-based business is making, the risk is much lower. So the standard, I guess, is much lower as well.
And is inspection still required for that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Have we got any other questions from the group? Okay, well, what I might do is I will leave this slide up here, and like I said, we have recorded this this meeting, so it will be available hopefully on our website soon. All of these documents here, as I said, yeah, with the food business guides and things like that, they're all on our webpage under food businesses. So all of those examples in terms of, you know, what we'd expect to see from a commercial kitchen versus a home-based kitchen are in there as well. Yeah, and if you have any questions, we're all here to help. Our EHOs are very education focused and all about, you know, creating a better outcomes for our food businesses and also for the food safety in the Tweed. So we are here to help, and hopefully you will contact us if you need anything.
Just a really quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, just about smokers, like wood smokers. Where would that come into things? If that is that it's external use only, but then what sort of food requirements are around those?
Yeah, yep. So again, you know, these are the exemptions that we're speaking about. So different activities require different things. So from a wood smoker perspective, we'd want to be seeing, you know, how you're going to use that wood smoker. So, you know, is it 20 meters away from the business? What type of food are you going to be carrying out there? Whether or not that you're going to need mechanical ventilation. You know, are you going to need a hand wash basin that's close by to it? So all of those things, you know, when you're looking at that workflow design kind of idea, that's what you'd be considering, all those risks. In terms of a wood smoker as an example, yeah, as Meredith said, you will need to make sure that you have planning approval. But for our other wood smokers at businesses, we've looked at having them fenced, and we've looked at having a flue that's going to extract the smoke from that area, and about them being within, you know, 10 meters or so to the business that's going to be, you know, bringing the food in and out of the main kitchen.
Okay, so where would I find some more precise guidelines around that, or is it just try to work to best practice to start with and get an indication?
Yeah, and that is, you know, that original slide that we spoke about, the Food Standards Code and the Australian standards are quite outcomes based, so they're not going to give you the exact, you know, this is how you do this and this is how you do that. We do have stuff in terms of the chimney requirements, so the actual ventilation, which I can send you if you like, Rebecca. Yeah, yep. But yeah, it is an outcomes based. So we do have, you know, many businesses that suggest some, you know, really out there kind of ideas. So it's all about reducing the risks, and we're not going to limit a food business, you know, on the activities that they're proposing if they can, you know, manage those risks appropriately.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Is there any other questions that we have here today? Well, I will leave it there. Thank you very much for your questions here today, and hopefully you got something out of this presentation. If you have any, you know, questions, or you want to get in touch directly, please feel free to do so. What I'll do is I'll put my email address in this chat box here, and you can get in touch with me directly. Rebecca, I'm hoping that I can get your details as well. But what I might do is I might send you a quick message and get you to send through your email, and I can send that one through to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've got one more question, Elaine.
Oh, sorry.
Just before we go.
Yeah, of course, Peter.
The new rules which are coming into play very soon.
Yeah.
When's that come into effect?
Yeah, so it will. It's already in place. So we're speaking about standard 3.2.2a. So it is already in place, but they won't be enforceable through our council until December. I think it's the 12th of December, if I'm correct, sometime in December. Those are really to do with how you operate your food business. So in terms of record keeping or food safety training and things like that. I guess it's kind of a whole another subject in itself. But basically, what those changes are is that there's higher requirements for some businesses, such as childcares and some retail food businesses, to have a food safety supervisor, which they didn't have before. there is higher requirements for record keeping and demonstrating the way that you're complying with the food standards 3.2.2, which is all about your, handling, so temperature control, washing your hands, hygiene, all those types of things. So there is higher requirements on that. They really won't come into effect unless, we're at your business and the operator doesn't demonstrate the suitable practices. So say, for instance, if we're talking about hand washing and we see in a business that, no one's washing their hands, they're not washing their hands correctly, with soap and paper towel, we didn't see it throughout their inspection and things like that, we'll ask that business to provide us, some records on how their staff are trained, or we'll ask or direct them to do some training with their staff. So it doesn't actually change a hell of a lot for most businesses, but it will mean, I guess, more record keeping and training for compliance matters.
So just touching on the record keeping, temperature control. Say refrigeration.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but for refrigeration, commercial operations typically, check and record either manually or electronically temperature once a day. So in relation to, say, hot food, is checking the temperature of your equipment once a day adequate? How often do you need to check the temperature of bain-maries or something of that nature?
Yeah, it's really on a case-by-case basis. If your equipment is working and you have tested it, say you've started a new business and you've got your bain-marie that's a new one, and you've tested that, morning, lunch, afternoon for a week, and you've seen that it's always consistently above, 60 and well and truly above 65 sort of thing. So that food is above 60 degrees. If you've tested that over a week and, all of the equipment is working, you might then reduce back that you're just testing it during your busy periods, like at lunchtime or something like that. And that's fine. You might want to include like your record keeping and things like that. But say if you're a business that, their equipment is a little bit older, it, works in the morning but doesn't work in the afternoon, or it works when it's full and it doesn't work when it's not full, you'll need to check it more often than that, just to make sure that you're kind of meeting those temperatures. And then you'll use your critical controls to try and think, okay, am I going to need to, get this equipment fixed, or am I going to need to create a record sheet so that I know my staff are checking it regularly, and then I know that the food is above 60 degrees, all of those types of things.
Okay. And I seem to recall something about the mechanism by which you check the temperature. So, again, correct me if I'm wrong. So it seemed to indicate to me that something like a bain-marie needs a constant, essentially a digital display of the temperature, as opposed to doing a manual check, say, with a thermometer. Is
we
that
would
the
always,
case?
we would always advise that you're manually checking with your thermometer. So a digital temperature on the bain-marie is great, and it's can help you with your business, but as you probably are aware, it's not always accurate. So any of your temperature checks you should be doing with your digital probe thermometer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
No worries at all. Okay. All right. Well, that might be it for today. Thank you very much, as I said, for coming. Rebecca might just get you to send me through your email address in the chat, and I'll send you through some ventilation stuff. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I'll put my email address here, and you can get in contact with me at any time.